So today's episode, I am going to tell you that with your dreams, you need to break down. And I'm not just going to give you a story or something like that, but I am going to help you to develop it. So now you have your goal. So an example is, let's say you want to start a podcast. You have heard about podcasting. Podcasts can do this, podcasts can do that, and you have reflected on it and you have given enough reason and you know that this is for you. But there is something stopping you. You feel like, I need to start big. I need to buy big machines, sophisticated machines so that I can start. And you don't have the funds to start. And sometimes to having the time to record is a big deal. So all you need is to identify what goes into that goal. Start a podcast. Yes. What are the goals? Those are the tasks that you have to do to ensure you start, maintain, and grow. So what you are going to do is how to start. Figure out how you can start. You can research online, research on podcasts you follow, which you think can help you to understand more of podcasts. Follow podcast groups, like authentic podcast groups that can help you to grow, that can help you to achieve what you want to achieve. And you divide this tasks coming from the podcast type that you want to set. If you don't have that desire, I can also pick another scenario that we can dive deep on. So the podcast you want to develop, why do you want to set this podcast, this type of podcast? If it's not self-help or self-improvement, maybe you want to set a podcast related to education, pop culture. Now you know what type of podcast you know. And now you have to do this 5 rule that I usually do when I want to start an idea, start a project, or start a business. First of all, who do you want to share your voice with, share your knowledge? Maybe you have some experience on topic. You know that there are people suffering from that topic, or there are people suffering from it. So you want to provide solution for those people and know how you are going to solve it. So you know how you are going to solve it by tackling the problem. So the problem is the solution. So when you have a problem, you have a solution. When you have a problem, you have a podcast. When people have a problem, you discover the problem. Now you know what people want, whether they want the podcast in shorts like 10 to 15 minutes or 1 hour kind of podcast. But you can discover when you start the podcast. Now you know that this is the type of people I want to catch or I want to grab. I want to help them out. You know their demands, you know their needs, you know their likes. And also you have to discover other podcasts doing the same thing that you want to do. So that is one task. And another task is you develop a podcast cover. You can find people on Fiverr or other freelance marketplace for them to do a cover for you. Or you can develop one on Canva. You can identify name you have to give for your podcast. So far I've mentioned like 3 tasks. Yeah, 3 tasks that you are going to do for your podcast. And then you can also decide whether this podcast I'm going to do it in seasons, like how I do it, so that you can rest, gain the momentum, and move forward with whatever that you want to do. So now, if you are doing it seasonal, you can pick topics. What I usually do here is pick topics that I will be discussing for every season related to the solution I want to bring to people. So, or you can let your thing be general and pick topics across anywhere, but I prefer picking themes for your podcast. So let's say with this season, it's all about goals implementation. Last season was about mindset so that you can be focused. Even when guests come to you, you know that this is the area I want to talk on. So if you have knowledge on it, fine. So usually what I do is I pick 3 topics so that I can talk on it. And if guests come and they feel like they don't have capacity or they are not filled in one of the topics, by all means, one of them will be okay for them. And also another thing you can do is like identify the episodes you are going to do. So all these things are tasks. So this is the task if you want to start a podcast. I'm not going to give you it because today's topic is not on podcasts. Let's say also you discovered your goal to create, let's say, an app, or let me pick something. Let's say you decided to start a merch business. This thing, I've done it before. That's why I'm picking this topic. So you've decided to start a merch, and that one too, you use the problem solving approach. So who do you want to serve? What kind of people do you want to know their desire? So the first task is research. So under the research, you know the problems is one step. You identify their needs is another task. You know the solution you want to bring on board. So let's say you discovered that nowadays people suffer from suicide or people suffer from mental health issues. So you want to create an awareness through your merch, and maybe your merch is for t-shirts. So you know the kind of people you want to do, their tastes, whether they like more of black t-shirts or white t-shirts, or whether they like it with so much of color. So now with this, I've mentioned like 3 or 4 tasks. You write this down, and this is the research phase. And now you are going to decide the designs you want to create. And if you are already a creative person, you can just draw a prototype, and you let someone do it also on Fiverr for the design to get more catchy designs. And also that too is a task that you are going to do. Yes. The next thing you are going to do is how you are going to produce it. So all these things is part of research, but it's part of the implementation also. So with this, you are going to decide whether you do it your own, you outsource, or you do drop shipping. So whatever that you decide, you take the action and you start preparing your products and doing the necessary awareness on social media or anywhere you want to do your product. So the goal is to start a merch shop. And here are the steps. And there are more steps in that if you break it down. So we have found our goal, and we have broken it down into pieces that we can work on it. The next thing we need to know is we are going to use 2 resources or tools right now with this kind of goals or the goals you have set. It doesn't mean that when you don't set a podcast or create a merch shop, it's not part of how you can do it. It's cut across every goal that you want to achieve. So now we need a notebook to write. Even with this preparation, you need a notebook. So you need a notebook to write all the steps down. And you have to also decide that whether you are going to repeat this processes throughout the year or the years, or it's just a short period. So now you know your tasks, you write it down. And you are going to write every task you are going to achieve in your notebook. You are going to utilize in your notebook. So in January, so let me start with, we are in November ending. So let's say December. So when you decide, maybe December, I'm going to work on like 5 tasks, and I'm going to work it slowly, step by step, and move in smaller piece. So now you know your tasks, you have written it down. You know that each day you are going to research a little thing about your goal or the solution you want to bring on board.